personally like to think that it's Oprah. Okay? Oprah is a crazy lady who everybody loves, everybody fell in love with, and then very quickly she came out about what her religious stance was. Okay? Oprah is a New Age believer. She believes that all roads lead to God. She believes that everyone's going to heaven and that everyone inside of them deep down has a piece of you that you can develop and actually become God yourself. Okay? Everything that's the epitome of going against what Scripture says and what Christ says. But we don't know for sure who the Antichrist is. Okay? Some people like to say that the Antichrist is Snooki's baby. Okay? Nobody really knows. All right, we'll see what comes of that as that little kid grows up. But we know that the Antichrist is coming, and John says here, way back in the first century, that there are already some Antichrists among us. Okay, there are those who follow the work of Satan, who intentionally work against the church and work against Christ and what his people are trying to do. All right, and so those people are among us. Scripture talks about the fact that there's various names for this figure. Antichrist is one, false Christ, a false prophet, a man of lawlessness, and specifically in the book of Revelation it talks about this person being the beast. Okay? The expectation of the Antichrist was pervasive in early Christian thinking. So a lot of what reigned in early Christian thought, in the teaching in the early church, was that the Antichrist was coming, that some were already among us, and that even those who had walked away from the faith might have been Antichrist himself. This passage is clear that there's an intermingling of one Antichrist with many smaller Antichrists, that there's an intermingling of a human and a supernatural Antichrist, and that the passages above indicate that the Antichrist is partially here now. Okay? There are signs of the end times here as John's writing in the first century, and there are numerous signs today. Okay? Here's the thing that I'll warn you against this specific topic when we talk about the end times is don't get so caught up in it that all you do is worry about what's going to happen in the end. Okay? Because if you focus on everything that's going to happen in the end, we don't fully understand all that stuff. Okay? The book of Revelation is hard for a pastor to understand, let alone a bunch of teenagers. Okay? Don't focus solely on what's going to happen in the end. Focus on what God's telling you now. Focus on knowing Him and making Him known. Okay? That's what you got to focus on. So verse 19, John talks about the second sign of the end time that he sees happening called apostasy. In verse 19 he says, "They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out that it might become plain that they all are not of us." Okay? Everybody knows people who have come into the church. They've walked an aisle, they prayed a prayer, they made a decision. Okay? Some of you did it at VBS, some of you did it at church camp, whatever. You came in to the church service, you got baptized, this big event, and then people left the church and you never saw them again. Right? Everybody knows at least one person like that. John says that some of the followers of Christ, some of the disciples of Christ who were following Christ's teaching walked away from the church. And he says that when they walked away, it showed that they weren't truly believers, that they weren't really a part of the faith. We can't actually know someone else's heart and whether or not they're a true believer. Okay? But if a person is a true believer, born again, Paul says that they're a new creation. Okay? That the old dies and the new comes forth. Right? He says in Galatians that the flesh is crucified with Christ. He calls the Romans to be transformed. Okay? To be that new creation. Alright? If you meet Jesus, okay? If you meet the God who created the universe, if you meet the Son of God who left His throne to come and walk among people,